Sometimes you get these days where everything seems to happen at once. Well, let me tell you, the last 24 hours in the United States have been exactly that. We've seen three huge and, at first glance, totally unrelated stories just collide. It's a lot, it's chaotic, and today we're going to unpack what it all really means. So, what actually happens when three massive stories shake a country all in one day? I mean, are they just random headlines? Well, no. What we're seeing is that they're actually deeply connected. And together they paint this really startling picture of where America is right now. So let's dive in and figure this out. Okay, the best way to think about this is like we're putting together a three-piece jigsaw puzzle. Each one of these big stories is a single piece, and it's only when we click them all together that we're going to see the full, really clear picture of the immense pressures the U.S. is facing, both inside the country and out on the world stage. All right, so let's grab our first piece of the puzzle. This one takes us right down to the Caribbean Sea, where a huge confrontation is brewing, all because of an incredibly bold and really aggressive move by the United States. So what exactly happened? The U.S. went and seized a giant Venezuelan oil tanker. But that wasn't even the biggest part. The real flashpoint, the thing that set everything off, was this super short, super powerful statement that came out of the White House. Just 5 words. We will keep the ship. I mean, wow, that wasn't just a statement. It was like throwing a lit match on a pool of gasoline. The entire region is now on edge. And right away, you've got two completely different stories about what happened. On one hand, the U.S. is framing this as a totally legal, by-the-book law enforcement action. But on the other side, Venezuela's government fired right back, calling it what it is in their eyes, straight-up piracy on the high seas, a total violation of their sovereignty. And make no mistake, the stakes here are incredibly high. We're not just talking about a diplomatic spot. Back in Washington, even members of the U.S. Congress were sounding the alarm, basically saying, hey, one wrong move here and this whole thing could easily spiral into a massive, full-blown regional war. That's how tense it is. All right, let's put that first piece down for a second and grab our second piece of the puzzle. Because while all that tension was flaring up in the Caribbean, something else huge was happening back in Washington, D.C., and it was happening fast. The U.S. House of Representatives just passed a new military budget. And the number? Well, it's just staggering. We're talking about nearly $1 trillion. To really put that into perspective for you, this is one of the largest, if not the single largest defense budgets in the entire history of the United States, ever. But it's not even just the massive size of the budget that's making everyone take notice. It's how it got passed. For one, it flew through the House at almost lightning speed. 2, in today's really divided political world, it got strong support from both Democrats and Republicans. That almost never happens. And 3, it actually locks in a 2-year long-term commitment to supporting Ukraine. So see, this isn't just about money for this year. It's a huge strategic signal that the U.S. is digging in for a long, sustained period of global tension. All right, time for our final piece of the puzzle. And this one, well, it's a total contrast to those first two. While America was out there projecting all this incredible military and political power, something much quieter, but really worrying, was happening back home. A little tremor shaking the country's economic foundations. So, the Federal Reserve, that's America's central bank, they just announced they're cutting interest rates again. Now, on the surface, that sounds pretty good, right? It makes borrowing money cheaper. But here's the catch. When the Fed does this over and over, it's actually a classic warning sign. It means they're really concerned about the underlying health of the economy. They're basically trying to jumpstart growth because they see some weakness coming that maybe the rest of us don't. And the reaction from the stock market was really telling. Usually when there's a rate cut, the market gets all excited and rallies. This time, it barely moved. It just kind of sat there. And what analysts are saying is that this shows investors are super anxious. They're afraid this wasn't a confident boost, but more like a desperate move to prop up an economy that's already starting to slow down. And frankly, that anxiety seems totally justified when you look at the American consumer, the people who really drive the U.S. economy. I mean, check this out. Household debt and credit card debt, they're at record highs. For millions of people, their paychecks just are not keeping up with how expensive everything is. And now we're starting to see the consequences. Businesses are hiring fewer people, and some are even starting those, quiet layoffs. That foundation is definitely looking shaky. Okay, so there they are, our 3 pieces. an aggressive move on the world stage, a record-breaking military budget, and a shaky economy at home. Let's click them all into place and see what the big picture really looks like. What we're looking at is a huge contradiction, right? A paradox. And it's a pattern we've actually seen before in history. On the outside, America is projecting absolute maximum strength. You've got the bold foreign policy, the historic military spending. It's a classic playbook for asserting power when you're feeling a little uncertain at home. Because on the inside, the reality is a fragile economy, one that needs constant help just to keep its head above water. You know, some analysts have come up with a really great metaphor to describe what's happening, and it's perfect. They say it's like America is slamming its foot on the gas pedal, trying to race ahead on the world stage. But the wheels of the car, the economy back home, are starting to shake like crazy. And that's a kind of tension you just can't maintain for long. Okay, so I know what you might be thinking. This is all happening thousands of miles away. Why should I care? But what does this big American paradox actually mean for the rest of us? For the world? And yeah, specifically for a country like Thailand? Well, the ripple effects could be huge. Think about it. A conflict over an oil tanker in the Caribbean, that could send global oil prices on a wild roller coaster. A shaky U.S. economy, that creates a ton of volatility for currencies like the Thai baht. It hits the demand for Thai exports. And maybe most importantly, this kind of instability could trigger some major, unpredictable shifts in how countries deal with each other all across Asia. Look, the fact that all three of these things happened in the same 24-hour window, that's probably not a coincidence. It's a pretty strong signal that the U.S. is starting some kind of major strategic shift. And that's why the next 3 to 6 months are going to be so important to watch. We're about to see which way this thing is going to break. And so all of this leaves us with one massive, overarching question. When you're facing this kind of tension, this pull between ambition on the world stage and weakness back home, which path do you choose? Is the U.S. going to keep pushing forward, aggressively trying to dominate globally, or will it be forced to pull back, turn inward, and finally fix those shaking wheels at home? The answer to that question, well, it's not just going to shape America's future. It's going to shape ours, too.